All right there, folks. Welcome back. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, filling in for Alex Jones today here on the Alex Jones Show. Thank you for joining us. We've got just an incredible lineup of guests right ahead for you here, including Gwen Olsen, who's in studio with us. We're going to be going to her in just a minute. Let me give a brief intro to that information and why her book really matters. And I also just want to say thank you for listening in. And you're going to learn a lot today in this interview coming up, a lot about the pharmaceutical industry from an insider's perspective. This is information that they will not tell you in the mainstream media. They will not tell you in the drug advertisements that you see on television. Hey, you won't even find this on the FDA's website because they don't want you to know this information. Now, the book is called Confessions of an RX Drug Pusher. I've been describing it as a prescription drug pusher, but the title is really RX. So if you're looking for this on Amazon.com or wherever you buy books, go to Confessions of an RX Drug Pusher. And we'll show you a shot of that book here in a second for those of you watching on prisonplanet.tv. Now, Gwen Olsen has won numerous accolades and awards for her work as a journalist, reporting, again, as an insider, a former insider in the pharmaceutical industry. She's been featured on all kinds of news, television shows, radio programs all across the country. She dares to tell the truth. She has tremendous courage, and she is, in my opinion, helping people save their lives from the dangers of pharmaceuticals. She joins us here in studio today on the Alex Jones Show. Gwen, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, it's nice to have you here. I'm just going to scoot this microphone a little closer to you there.
Okay.
Make sure everybody can hear you. So give us the quick version of a little bit of your background, how you used to be an insider, and what made you change your mind and start speaking out about the dangers of how these drugs are marketed, especially to children?
Well, I spent the vast majority of my time in the pharmaceutical industry as a specialty rep from 1985 until the year 2000. So I was primarily calling on your specialists such as cardiologist, endocrinologist, OBGYN, and psychiatry. And throughout my 15-year tenure, I worked for 4 major manufacturers, and I started to realize that they all had one thing in common, and that was that they considered human beings to be a human commodity, and that they expected a certain number of us to lose our lives in the utilization of their products.
So this was just part of their formula. They know we're going to sell $100 million of this drug, X number of children are going to die or adults are going to die, and to them that's acceptable.
Yes, when I don't know that they actually have it down X number of children or X number of adults, but we anticipate that there are going to be certain number of deaths, certain number of side effects, and we also put aside a kitty for lawsuits that will probably result as, because of that.
Except in the vaccine industry where they have the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program where you can't sue through the normal courts.
Correct.
It's all total. Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Correct. So I was in the industry for a period of 15 years, and over that course of time, it wasn't like, one day that I said, oh my God, I'm in the pharmaceutical industry, I have to get out. It was a series of events. I started waking up consciously in the pharmaceutical industry. So this is a spiritual calling for me, what I'm doing. But it was, it was just one event after another that I started observing that I was being told to misinform providers, that I was being given information myself that was incorrect, and I was supposed to minimize side effects, and I was constantly being trained to divert the attention of the healthcare provider from the problems that, were created by my portfolio of drugs.
Okay, whoa, that's a lot that you've said already. Let me start. First of all, the money is good as a pharmaceutical rep, isn't it?
Yes, I made 6 figures before I was 26 years old.
Wow. Okay.
And company car and benefits.
Okay, so you got a car, a 6-figure salary.
Yes.
So your job was to go around and visit the doctor's offices and basically persuade them to prescribe your company's drugs to their patients.
Yes, my job was presented as an educational position where I was to educate physicians, but my job was a marketing job where I was meant to increase the bottom line of my company's portfolio.
And in this education job, as you say, you just said that part of what you were told to do was to minimize side effects, to minimize any discussion about side effects, perhaps to exaggerate drug benefits?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, Every training that we did, anytime we went to a meeting, anytime we went to any, pool meetings or gatherings of numerous reps together, we would have training sessions called knee to knees and toe to toes, where you'd have one rep that would stand in line and oppose the other representative, one playing the doctor and one playing the rep. Then we would take different objections that people were hearing in the field, and we would learn to manage those and minimize that doctor's concerns for that objection. So you would have marketing personnel and management there that would be directing you, and a legal person very often if you were in the home office.
Wow.
And we would all practice regurgitating the exact same response to that particular concern.
Wow, so role-playing, practicing. If you were doing that with raw milk, you'd be charged with conspiracy.
Absolutely.
'Cause that's a conspiracy.
I'd be in jail.
Right there.
I'd be in jail.
If you're sitting with somebody and you're planning how to persuade someone, that's a conspiracy. Okay, so then, so you were very effective, I would say. You were very effective.
I was in the top 3% of any company I ever worked for, and the only reason I say that's my ego speaking. I was the best of the best of the best, but that's what that industry is about. And I don't want people thinking that I'm speaking out because I'm disgruntled I couldn't make it in the industry. That the only reason I stayed in the industry was because I was extremely effective at my job. They'd have never put up with all my questions otherwise.
So you could have continued in that industry and made millions of dollars and continued to climb the corporate ladder.
A millionaire.
You sure you don't want to be the vice president of Pfizer's global vaccine division like the former CDC head, Julie Gerberding?
I sleep very well at night now. I don't think he does unless he takes Ambien.
Well, I think she sleeps just fine because she's taking sleeping pills from her employer there. Okay, that's just a joke for those of you, for those lawyers out there who are wondering. Okay, in your book, by the way, can you hold up your book so people can see it on prisonplanet.tv? Yeah. Confessions of an RX Drug Pusher. And this is available everywhere. What's your website, by the way?
It's GwenOlsen.com, GwenOlsen.com.
GwenOlsen.com, great. And I notice you have some articles, a little bit of a sort of a running blog and information. Jaron, can we bring up that website just to show people what that is? What else can people find there?
Well, I really have, it's a nice site where everybody can go and get good information. I can get information from you. I put a lot of your articles on.
Oh, do you?
Yes, I do.
Great,
Dr. Mercola. I put a lot of different information on there, just trying to keep abreast of things so that people have one resource site that they can go to.
What do you think of this breaking news that we have now where the U.S. government wants to study anthrax vaccines by using American children as guinea pigs, injecting them with this vaccine to see what happens?
Well, I'm a child advocate, and so that's actually the crux of my work, and my mission is about informed consent and keeping our children safe, because as adults, I believe we have the right to take and put into our bodies whatever we choose. But for our children, I think we really have the responsibility to get it right, because they do not have an option and they cannot refuse our treatments. So I have a very personal view of this, because my husband, quite frankly, has had his health destroyed by the anthrax vaccine. He was one of the weekend warriors that was reactivated and had to go to the Gulf War.
Really?
And they gave him the anthrax vaccine. When he went, he was extremely healthy. He biked, he windsurfed, he swam. He was extremely healthy. In fact, he was in the peak of his health. When he came back, he developed all kinds of health issues, including asthma and allergies, and his thyroid stopped functioning. He's had critically high blood pressure. He's got extremely high lipid profiles, and I attribute this to the vaccines and other things that he was exposed to. So it makes
Gwen,
me very concerned.
The government says that there's no correlation between these experimental vaccines that all the Gulf War veterans, for example, were given, and the side effects that they are experiencing, the neurological issues, the asthma, the autoimmune disorders, and so on. They say there's no correlation. And by the way, they've had people sitting in rooms role-playing back and forth with the press, to make sure they get their answers straight on that, probably with a big White House lawyer along for the ride, or a Pentagon lawyer as well. So they say that what you just said is completely false. What's your response to that?
Well, obviously my story is anecdotal, but I also have to respond that I found that the government lies quite frequently, particularly when they're in collusion with the pharmaceutical industry. And so I try to tell people that, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, because I can prove everything that I say. And I think a lot of people, if they did their own due diligence, would realize we're being lied to about a lot of things. particularly by our government.
I can't believe that Jared, I can't believe we would have a guest here who would say the government lies. How dare we? All right, chapter 3 of your book is a case against antidepressants. Now, there was breaking news last week, I believe, or the week before, that, 12% of the American people are on antidepressant drugs every day of their lives. It's incredible. What does that say to you as someone who's been now on sort of, you've seen both sides of this industry? Are you concerned about this trend?
I'm very concerned about it, and I think that the advertising is obviously a lot more effective than the drugs are, because I've done my due diligence, and I know that the drugs are no more effective than 10% more than placebo, and that 60% of that efficacy is placebo effect, which means that if you take a drug, you think you're going to get cured, and therefore, because you have that ability of the mind-body-spiritual connection to heal yourself, you will heal. So I know that antidepressants are not effective. I know that they're trying to move a lot of that market, and I predicted this actually 5 years ago, that they would move a lot of the antidepressant market into the antipsychotic market as soon as people became privy to the fact that they didn't work. And now we have treatment-resistant depression where they add on antipsychotics. So I was like, whoa, why didn't I think of that?
What about oppositional defiance disorder?
Oh, hey.
Oh, that's my favorite.
I was diagnosed with that myself.
Yeah, just for those listening, oppositional defiance disorder is a legitimate, well, I should say a fraudulently fabricated disease that the psychiatric industry says is legitimate, that you could be diagnosed with this by disagreeing with authority figures, and then you need treatment.
Hey, and I just thought I was a rebel with a cause.
Well, you know, having your own independent ideas, Gwen, that's almost terrorism. I mean, that's like betraying the country, I guess, now, to have your own ideas.
Well, I think we both probably fall under the definition of a homeland terrorist now.
Just for having our own thoughts.
That's right.
Well, speaking of terrorism, let's go on to other chapters of your book. Okay. Oh, man, you've got a chapter here called Another One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Betrayal of the Public Trust. What about the FDA's conspiracy with the pharmaceutical industry here, where they knowingly approve drugs that they know are fraudulently, that the trials are fraud? Mm-hmm. I mean, we've seen cases where many clinical trial doctors are just making up the numbers, literally making it up, and they get published in peer-reviewed medical journals. And then years later, they get caught, but thousands of other scientists have already quoted their study, and now it's considered scientific fact. It was all a complete hoax. Or
they do like Dr. Biederman did at Harvard, and they promise a result, an outcome from the studies before the studies are even conducted. So the studies, a lot of the studies are overseas. They're done overseas now, and they're in third world countries, where they lay down millions and millions of dollars, and they say, this is what we're looking for, as if that's not going to come back so that they can get, future studies done in those areas. But to me, it's just a big collusive effort from the pharmaceutical industry to the FDA to just get everybody covered and all of their bases covered. They're pushing drugs through the system and fast-tracking them because the pharmaceutical industry doesn't want to wait, for the appropriate R&D to be, conducted.
Right. And it takes time to fabricate data.
Right, and they claim to lose $1 million a day, while they're waiting for those to get patents. However, right. I do know that a lot of the FDA members are just people that are basically waiting to get out and retire from the FDA and go into consulting positions into the pharmaceutical industry. It's a revolving door. They go in and out of one another, and particularly in government as well. So, I mean, people just need to follow the money trail, and they would realize how much we are at risk in terms of
that's the theme of everything going on today. If you follow the money trail, then you can figure out, you can decode the matrix, you can see what's happening in our world. And Gwen, by the way, you are an American hero. I'm going to say that on the record. You are a hero. You are a real hero, not these fake, false heroes that are trying to run for president today. There's only one hero running for president. That's Ron Paul, in my opinion. But I want to take some calls, by the way, after this break. So if you're listening to this and you got a question for Gwen, maybe you have a local doctor pushing psychiatric drugs on your kid. You got a question about that? Well, Gwen's not a doctor, but she's been in the industry. She might be able to give you some insight. So get your questions ready, and I hope we can do some call-ins here. We'll do that after the break. But, getting ready for that, we've also got the whole vaccine industry is now being exposed as a total fraud. The flu vaccine doesn't work, and the Gardasil vaccine is maiming and killing some children. That's exploded in the press recently. So we're winning.